Yeah,
I
recording
think
start.
we have started. I hope you can hear us. My name is Elena Simperl. I'm from the University of Southampton in the UK. And I'm here with my colleague Luis. Luis, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Luis, also from University of Southampton.
And I think we also have one of our colleagues from the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany among us.
Hi, this is Fabrizio from Fraunhofer.
Right, so the three of us are here today to talk to you about applying into the ODINE program. Thank you for joining us. There is a chat feature in the GoToMeeting application towards the bottom of the screen, which you can use to ask questions. You can ask questions at any point in time, or you could just save them for the end of the session. So we have planned a session of 90 minutes, which we roughly broken down into 60 minutes for the actual presentation and 30 minutes for the questions. But as I just said, feel free to interrupt us at any point in time, either write down your emails in the chat or just ask us live if there are some things that you think require further clarification. All right. So applying to ODINE. Before we start, let me just tell you a few things about who we are, about what the ODINE program is about. ODINE is a Horizon 2020 project. It is funded through public funding from the European Commission. And it is set up as a consortium of different institutions from Spain, UK and Germany, and that set up an incubation program for open data businesses. And the reason we do this is because we believe that open data is one of the key ingredients of the European digital economy. You could say that in general about data, but we believe open data has a special place in this landscape because it is available for everyone to use. It is not consumed for use like any other resources. It enables various data sets to be joined together to create added value. It also sets up new platforms for collaboration as people who use organizations that use the same open data and enrich it and cleanse it can come together and work on a joint open data set for the public good. Its value for businesses and for the public sector has been attested in various surveys, some of which you might have heard of. So on the right-hand side of the slide, you see now a few of the most recent surveys by market research organizations worldwide, which have looked at the potential of open data for commercial purposes. Our role in this ecosystem is to build an incubation program for startups and SMEs that have recognized the value of open data in various domains and are looking for help and support to grow a business in this area. As part of the services that we are offering financial support for startups and SMEs that are incorporated in the European Union. And to select the companies that will receive this funding, we have set up an open call, which has been launched in May 2015 and will remain open until August this year. The way the call is organized is meant to make it easy for SMEs to plan their submission. So you can submit at any point in time, and every 2 months we look at the submissions that we had received in that round and evaluate them. SMEs applies for projects of 6 months, so the funding that you're applying for is going to be used to fund different types of activities for a period of 6 months, and there is an online submission process. We are managing a fund of 5.5 million euros, and we are now evaluating the 6 of the 8 rounds of the standing call, which means that the next deadline for you to apply, if you're considering that, is the end of June, which would be round 7. What do we offer? Well, the financial support is up to 100,000 euros. This is equity-free funding, which we are giving to SMEs and to startups to grow their business. And in addition to that, we offer expert advice from business mentors, so you will be put in touch, you will be paired with a mentor based on your preferences and your requirements. This person will be in touch with you regularly and will help you in your activities. We also have a pool of business mentors who offer more general advice. So they offer training, they offer webinars, they offer support in certain parts of Europe and so on. We offer now peer networking and support as well. So there are various events that you're going to be invited to. We also link you to, introduce you to companies that have already graduated our program. So currently there are 16 such companies that have completed their 6-month project and are part of our alumni community. We work together with The Guardian in the UK, which is committed to feature your profile and your business story on their website as a means to promote your activities. And we facilitate introduction to investors and to potential clients. The funding is for relevant business ideas that use open data, and we're going to talk about open data and what it is and what isn't a bit later. But the 100,000 euros that you can receive are basically to cover activities from salaries, subcontracting for other parties like freelancers, freelance developers, or marketing support or training, legal support. It can also be used to fund equipment, consumables, travels to client meetings or to conferences. Part of this funding is what we call indirect expenditure. So these are costs that are not directly related to your 6-month project, but are nevertheless important, like the office space that you need to rent or the basic office infrastructure. The way we calculate, the way we define what are eligible costs for your funding and the way we calculate them is in line with what Horizon 2020 allows us to do. So we are funded through this EU program called Horizon 2020, which defines what we can and cannot fund. The program targets small and medium enterprises that are established in the EU 28 countries or in what they call a Horizon 2020 associated country. So the list of associated countries is available on the European Commission's website. So typically, if you are in the EU, say in the UK or in Ireland or in Poland, in Romania, you are located in a country that is automatically eligible for funding. But even if you are in one of the associated countries, which include, for instance, Norway, Switzerland, but also some of the other countries outside Europe, check the guidelines because you might be eligible to apply as well. The application is online, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. But basically it includes some standard information about whom you are as a company, the short proposal, which is the most important part of your application, and a declaration of honor. We also ask you to register with the European Commission as a small and medium enterprise. This is a process that we do not control, but we offer you some guidance about how to do it. It is an online process with a few questions that you need to go through to complete this registration. Each application is evaluated by 2 external experts who recommend companies to be invited for the second stage of the application, which is an online interview. We give feedback for all applications, no matter if you're invited to the interview or not. We will give you feedback. The feedback will be in the form of 2 reviews from the 2 experts that have looked at your application, and in some cases a summary that we create in ODINE. The notification for this is within 1 month from the submission for the corresponding round. So I told you earlier that we have these 2-month cycles. Say the last round has finished at the end of April. This means that by the end of May you should receive your feedback. Companies that have applied in round 6 with a deadline at the end of April will know much earlier than the end of May if they are invited to the interview. The feedback is sent out at the end of May, however, when the cycle is finished. The criteria that we're using to evaluate and select the proposals is a one-on-one mapping to your short proposal. So the evaluators will look at the short proposal and will evaluate the extent to which you have answered each question. If you are successful, then we are going to invite you to the negotiations, which means that we will need to sign a contract with you that includes a list of KPIs and deliverables you commit to produce at the end of the 6 months. And we will also establish a list of services that you will receive, including a business mentor, an advisor from ODINE, and various other types of services, from technology to training to others that you might need based on your specific profile and your plans and your preferences. If you want to have an idea about what type of companies we fund, I would encourage you to go and look at opendataincubator.eu/companies. We have all 34 companies that are currently, that have been in the program or are currently in the program. So they're listed there. You will see that we have companies from all over the EU. 24 countries are represented. We have invested 3.5 million of the 5.5 million funds that we have available up to round 5, and we have 3 more rounds to go. So I would really recommend having a look at some of these companies to get an idea about what it takes, perhaps, to be successful in this process. And finally, very recently we have launched a dashboard that publishes various statistics of the open call, of the competition. So you can have a look for yourself and get an idea about the number of submissions, so how high the competition is, where the submissions come from, what are your chances to get accepted. So typically we have noticed that around 20% of the applications make it to the interview round, but obviously the acceptance rates into the program are a bit lower than that. So have a look at this dashboard to get an understanding of the submissions landscape and perhaps have a better idea about your chances to enter the program. All right. So this was the introduction. If there are no further questions at this stage, I would suggest now we continue with the actual application. So say you are interested in applying to ODINE, where do you start? Like for everything that is related to this project, please start with our website. So go to the opendataincubator.eu website, and the first thing you should see is the screenshot here. You are interested in the left box which says apply. This is your entry point to everything that you need to know for your application. So if you click on apply for funding, you will get to a page that looks like this, that says how to apply. One thing that you see immediately are the next deadlines. So the 6th round has finished at the end of April, on April 30th. The deadline is at midnight each time. The next deadline is going to be the 30th of June. So you have around 7 weeks to prepare an application. The yellow box that I have highlighted on the bottom of the slide is just for you to realize that this page contains all information that you need to consult in order to understand what is needed for an application. In particular, there is a box called Guide for Applicants. This is a document that contains all the information that is covered in this webinar alongside much more. So we have templates for the proposal, a template of the review form that is used by the external experts to assess your application, excuse me. There are links to the contract we would ask you to sign if you are successful in your application, and so on and so forth. So please start with a guide for applicants, and then perhaps move to the frequently asked questions, which you can see on this page as well. This gives you a process overview of what I have explained a bit earlier. So we have these rounds, which means that every 2 months we take all applications we have received and evaluate them. The evaluation takes 1 month, the negotiation 1 month. So practically, it can take you at most 4 months to enter the program if you are successful, assuming you will apply early on in a round, say right now. Your application will be evaluated starting from July 1st. You will know at some point mid-July if you're invited to the interview. You will receive your feedback, no matter the outcome of your application, end of July. And if you are successful, you will negotiate with us, you'll sign the contract, and provide the required documentation throughout August. And then on the 1st of September, you will enter the program and start your 6 months project. Yes, there is a big button here saying read the frequently asked question. This is a document that we have put together from based on the most popular questions people had. So we've been doing this competition now for a long time. We have started in May last year. So please have a look at those frequently asked questions to get more clarity on the application process. In particular, one of the things that this frequently asked question document contains is a complete timeline for this process overview for each round. So it says when does each round start, when does it finish, when do we plan the interviews in each round, when are negotiations due, and so on and so forth. To actually apply, so if you decide to apply, on the How to Apply web page, there is a yellow button. Yeah, so remember I told you there are the next deadlines, and then there is this Apply Now button. If you press that button, you will access the submission platform, which is an online platform. It is browser-based. You will be asked to do 3 things. There will be some basic information about your company, including the registered name. You will have to upload a PDF version of a template called Declaration of Honor, which is for us to make sure that the information that you're submitting is in line with EU regulations and to common practices. So it is nothing to be worried about. Have a look. That template is already available. Have a look at it, and if you have any questions about that, just drop us an email. And the third thing that you need to upload is another PDF, which is that short proposal we're going to talk about in a little while. Submissions can be updated at any point in time. So once you have uploaded the documents, you can go back and you can change everything. However, at the end of each round, like the 30th of April for the round we're currently evaluating, or the 30th of June for the round that is currently open, we will take all submissions and we will evaluate them based on the documents that are there. There is, on the How to Apply web page, there is also a tutorial for the submission platform, which is shown here on the slide. It is a document you can download which offers step-by-step guidelines to how to use the platform, which is called EasyChair. All right, so before I go into the actual proposal, the short proposal of 4 pages that you need to submit, which is going to be evaluated and is going to decide on your acceptance into the program, let me just sum up a few basic rules. Everything you need to submit is defined in advance. There are templates for the Declaration of Honor. There is a template for the proposal. Please follow that template and stick to the guidelines. So we have guidelines on the font size. We have guidelines on the actual structure of each section in that proposal. Please realized there is a question. I'll get to that in a second. We have to make sure that the conditions are fair for everyone. So in order to make sure that we evaluate everyone on the same amount of information, we will have to insist that everyone follows that template exactly in the way that it is described. All right. So I see there was a question in the chat window. So the question refers to whether the webinar is recorded, I assume. If this is the case, then the answer is yes. So we are recording the webinar and we are going to offer it online for you to listen to and have a look after the live broadcast is over. If for some reason I have misunderstood the meaning of the question, please ask again. Apologies for that. So basic rules. Please do not change the template. Don't change the size of the fonts, of the headings. Don't change the way the tables are built. Obviously in each table we have instructions which you delete and replace with the actual content. But Don't try to optimize a template because it might make the reviewers declare your proposal non-eligible. Please stick to the 4 pages limit as well. So we have in the past, we have rejected without an evaluation almost every proposal or actually all proposals if I think about it, that did not respect this limitation. Also, make sure that you have the last version of the template and that you follow the guidelines. This is something that is quite common also in Horizon 2020 funding. Templates do change. Why do they change? Because we learn as well from our experience and from the feedback that we receive from the companies that are applying. So in some cases we rephrase some of the questions that we're asking you to respond in order to make them more clear both for you and for the reviewers that will assess your application. You can always download the last version of the template from the website. And if you're in doubt about which template to use, just drop us an email at call@opendataincubator.eu. So we had several applications we had to discard, unfortunately, in the previous round. There were mostly applications that were started perhaps 3, 4, 5 months ago, and they were using an outdated version of the template. So just a side note, the same rules apply to Horizon 2020 as well. So if you're using an outdated template, the reviewers might decide to discard your application without evaluating it in detail. All changes that we're making are announced on the website, and they're announced on Twitter as well. So if you follow us on Twitter, for instance, you will stay up to date with all these changes. A few key recommendations. Some of you might be familiar with Horizon 2020 or EU funding in general. This can be an advantage, but it can be a disadvantage as well, because yes, ODINE is supported by Horizon 2020, but you're not applying into the typical EU funding line. So you're applying to be part of a business incubator, which means that we're really looking for proposals that have a clear market proposition and a clear business potential. We want you to act as a startup, which means that you need to be able to present your ideas in a short, snappy form in 4 pages. We want you to be aware of your competition and to know your weaknesses and your strengths. And also, because we're operating on a very tight schedule, we need you to plan ahead and be aware of the deadlines. So I said earlier that we are committed to evaluate each proposal within 1 month after the end of a round, and to sign the contract with you a month later. In total, it can take you up to 4 months from your submission early in a round to entering the program. 4 months is a very tight schedule for a program that is that has to comply with the regulations, EU and national regulations of public funding. So we're working on a really tight schedule. In each round, we need to look at hundreds and hundreds of submissions. So this is why we have made an effort to tell you in advance what will happen when. So remember I told you about that frequently asked questions document? Have a look at the schedule that we've laid out there, because it gives you an idea when the interviews are going to happen in each round, when the negotiations are due in each round, and so on and so forth. Yeah. this is an overview of the call schedule as well, and I'll say a few things about the schedule of the evaluation and the negotiation later on in this webinar. And the point is that because we have to deal with a large number of submissions, and because we want to give you feedback and allow you to enter the program as soon as possible, we operate on very strict deadlines that need to be met. And when you apply to ODINE, you need to know that, for instance, this week in July is going to be blocked for interviews, and we will not be able to take into account scheduling preferences of anyone. So you will receive a particular time slot that week, and that will be the time slot in which the interview will happen. Or you're going to be given deadlines by which certain documents will need to reach us in order for us to sign the contract with you to allow you to enter the program, and those deadlines will need to be met. Otherwise, we can't operate as an incubator at this scale. I hope this is clear. Right. So we are now done with this general part about the application. So if there are no questions at this stage, I will most likely move to the short proposal. So the short proposal consists of 3 parts. There is something called the idea, there is something called the impact, and there's something called team and budget. So basically, the idea is about what you're planning to do. The impact is about what will your business mean for the broader market, for the world. Why is this idea important? And the third part is about why is it you that is going to be the best organization to realize this idea? Why is it realistic that you're going to realize it within the budget that you're asking for? So now I'm going to go through each of these 3 parts and give you some best practices that you might want to take into account. Right, so you have to take into account that you are asking to join a program, a business incubator, which gives you financial support. So in this context, ODINE, the ODINE program, acts as an investor, and we as an investor need to be convinced that what we're funding is going to make an impact, and we need to be able to check this impact through metrics that we agree upon with you. So you have an idea. This idea needs to be important for someone. So it has to address a need of someone. So there has to be a reasonably sized market for it. And we as an investor need to have the means to verify that there is a market and that your idea will have the impact you hope will have. We are not subsidizing. We want to invest in something that will create added value. And this added value can take various forms. So on a previous slide, or if you go and look at our front page at opendataincubator.eu, you will see a dashboard. And one of the metrics that we have is called impact. So this is a measure that adds up what we call all value that ODINE and the ODINE funding has helped to unlock. This means the taxes that you are paying, the new jobs that you are creating, or the general triple bottom line impact that you have through your new or improved business. the EU wants their investment to be worthwhile. So for an investment of 100,000 euros, assuming something like 35% in taxes, they need you as in all companies in the program, to produce something like 3 million euros in benefits. So it is not about us subsidizing you in any way. It is about us helping you at the right point in time in your business development to grow and to create that much added value that the EU can cash back on you based on your growth. ODINE is an open data incubator. So we do not have a focus on a particular vertical like healthcare, transportation or education, but we have a focus on open data. So we want to fund open data businesses. And there is a part in the proposal, in the first section, the idea, which asks whether open data is at the core of your business. What does this mean? This means simply that open data, the availability of one or more open data sets, needs to be the key enabler for your business to exist and grow. And if you remove that open data, something will fundamentally change. So if you switch to a closed data set and nothing changes, then you probably have a very exciting digital business or data-driven business, but it is perhaps less empowered by open data. All this refers mainly to cases in which you are using open data. We're also interested in businesses that create open data. However, there is a balance to be maintained, and our standpoint in this is as follows. There are hundreds of thousands of open data sets already available. We are primarily interested in exploiting those data sets. So given the state of the open data ecosystem right now, with all this wealth of resources available, all these hundreds of thousands of data sets already available, we would want these data sets to be used. And this is also reflected in the companies that apply to the program, that have been accepted into the program. So most of them will use existing open data for particular purposes. However, we also acknowledge the fact that in some cases there is valuable data which should be made available in the public domain. So if you have an idea which produces open data that is not yet available, please apply. However, just as it is the case with the open data consumer businesses, you will have to justify what is the added value of you releasing this open data set into the world for others. So say you were releasing, just to give an example from the UK, you were releasing a data set around geographical information systems, around addresses, which is something that is sold by the National Mail in the UK to businesses for a price for a fee at the moment. So if you find a legal, convincing way to recreate this data set and open it in the public domain, then you could argue that this would have, because it is such an essential data set, it would have an impact on others. And it will enable other businesses to use this data set and not pay a fee to a particular organization. So this is just one example of a scenario in which you might say, we believe this data should be in the public domain. We have a feasible, scalable, effective way to do this legally, and we are confident that by releasing this data set, we will create positive effects for the broader ecosystem. Some people have asked us, how about what happens with data that is, for instance, scraped off websites or data that is otherwise in the public domain? You have to be very careful about this. So open data needs to be licensed as such. Some websites do not allow you to do scraping. So whatever you can generate in this way, you might not have the right to reuse that data. Social media content is not open data. If you go and read the terms and conditions carefully from anything like Facebook or Twitter, they're not open data. Also, things like Google Maps or any sorts of services you can use publicly, they are not open data. So it would be good, if you are in doubt, please get in touch with us. But it would be good if you could consult the Open Data Handbook or any other resources available from the Open Data Incubator website, which explain in more detail what open data is about. So we want businesses that use or produce open data, and for which open data is an essential enabler for growth. These businesses that we are supporting are part of what we call the open data economy or the open data ecosystem. And for this ecosystem to strive and to develop further, all participants need to be in a similar mindset and to realize that by making the ecosystem stronger, they will help themselves and their business as well. Because you are all using the same public resources, it is important that every open data stakeholder doesn't just use the data sets that the government publish on their websites, but also give something back. For instance, they help cleansing or enriching the original data that they're using, or they publish data that they generate, or statistics, derivative data in any form, in the public domains for others to use as well. So there is a part in the proposal which I think is called Open by Default, where we want to see that you understand what is your role and your duty in the broader open data economy. There is also a question in the proposal about data privacy. This applies to those cases in which you are using or collecting personal data. So perhaps at this stage it is worthwhile to note that we don't want you to use only open data. And in fact, most companies that we are supporting use a mix of data sources. Some of them are shared data sets that they bought from another organization. Some of them are closed data sets that they own. But the important thing to add is that in this mix of data sources, there are open data sets that are key to the business model. So if they would drop those data sets, if those data sets would be closed all of a sudden or would disappear, it would have significant implications on their business in terms of costs or otherwise. One of these sources of data is personal data. we are happy for you to use this sort of sensitive data sets, but we need to see that you are aware of data protection regulations and the ethical implications of your work, and we want to see you acting responsibly, both if you're using a data set that collects anonymized personal information, or if you're collecting personal data in some form. For instance, if you have B2C application, a mobile app of some sort that uses location information of users, then this is a typical example which requires consideration of data protection concerns. Okay, so this was the first part of the proposal, which was called the idea. Luis, is there something else you would want to add at this stage about the individual questions, about things that I have missed?
No, I think everything has been covered. We had some questions that I've been answering. We had some question about what is open data at the core, but I think I answered that you already had a slide on that and you already explained it. Also about the definition of open data. That is data that can be freely used, reused, and redistributed by anyone, and that we are using the definition of the Open Data Institute that you can consult there. But the main point is that the license of the data set clearly states that it's open. So I think on the idea part we are okay. So we can proceed with the impact.
All right. Thank you for that, Luis. The impact is about the importance of your idea and the effects of your realizing the idea on your business and further. An important part of the impact is for us to understand what your business model is going to be. So you need to tell us really, really clearly what you want to sell, to whom you're going to sell it, and why do you think there is anyone who will be interested in paying for it. So remember that slide where I had you and your idea that responds to a real need of someone. That need should be so important, so critical, that people would be willing to pay for it. There are various types of business models, and in fact, so the program is open to small and medium enterprises and startups. This could be smaller companies which have just been incorporated. It could be established SMEs. So this is an organization with less than 250 employees according to the definition of the European Commission. So it's a broad range. So there are various types of organizations that we see applying into the program and are welcome to do so. And in the next slides, we've taken a few examples. So for instance, you are a consultancy. You run projects, you deliver projects for particular customers, and you're applying to ODINE. So for us in this case, it is important to understand the role of open data in everything you're doing, but also how your funding will help your business grow. How does it strengthen, or how does it make the consultancy projects that you're doing more effective? How does it help you to win more customers? So we need to understand first what you're doing, what you're selling, and to whom. We need to be convinced that there will be people willing to buy what you're selling, and we need to see how, by participating in ODINE, you are going to do better consultancies and you can win more customers, for instance. Sometimes companies focus on hardware, on something like connected devices, for instance. We've seen several applications in the area of Internet of Things, just to give an example. And if you go and look at the list of companies we have supported, you will find a few candidates in this space. There, it is a matter of you being able to state clearly how open data will allow your hardware or the services that you're building on top of this hardware to work better. In these cases, it is also important for us to understand your business development plans and the extent to which they scale and encourage investment. So, for instance, one of the companies we had is in the smart television domain, internet television domain. So one of the things they're producing are these smart TV boxes that they are installing in hotel rooms for large hotel chains, and they are delivering a service development kit on top of that, with which they then develop open data applications. So in these cases, it is important for us to understand how scalable your business development plans are, how much you can grow, and whether and to which extent your strategy encourages further investment. Other companies we are helping sell a software product or particular software services. There, we need to understand clearly in the impact part of your application whether open data is really something important to you, and how it will make that software that you are selling better. I have a separate slide for those cases in which the software is an open data tool of some sort, like a data publishing platform. But we also have companies in which open data is just consumed through that software. So in these cases, it is really, really important to remember what I said about open data at the core of the business. So we need to understand how the software that you're selling is empowered by open data. This could be, for instance, if you plan to go into a particular vertical that has great potential for your business, or if you're actually using open data in order to make your software work better. And finally, like I just anticipated, we have several companies in the program or applying that sell an open data software tool. We have companies that, for instance, create visualizations for statistical data sets, which are notoriously difficult to navigate and understand. We have a company that has created a data publishing platform based on CCAN, which is an open source open data repository tool. So they have this data publishing platform that has some more advanced features built on top of CCAN, which they offer to data publishers. Yeah. So we need to be convinced, we need to understand who your customers are. So are you doing something for data publishers, or are you addressing other verticals as well? Is government perhaps your primary client, and how confident you are that you have the right contacts and that you're going to secure the right types of contracts in the public sector? Convince us that you will be able to sell this product in those markets, and that that governments, in one instance, are going to be able and willing to pay for it. So these are a few types of profiles we have seen, and we've tried to emphasize some aspects that you need to think about. So if it's to sum up, if it's a consultancy, we need to understand how open data is going to help you carry out your projects in a better way, delivering the project better or more efficiently, and how it will help you win more customers. If it's a software tool that has perhaps little to do with open data itself, we would need to understand how suddenly, if I may say so, the availability of an open data set will make that software product you're selling better. If it is a mobile app of some sort that is built around an open data set, if it's a new product, we would also need to understand why there is a market for it and whom you're going to sell it to. And if it's a key piece of open data tool infrastructure, we need to understand whether it is for data publishers only, for other areas as well, if you plan to be a government contractor, and how high you estimate your chances are going to be. Either way, we have a duty to the public to fund things that matter, things that are likely to create sufficient added value and are going to scale, at least in principle, even if not during the 6 months that you spend with us, that scale across the EU. So you need to convince us that whatever market you are targeting, which needs to be very clearly identified and described, there are enough people that are willing to pay for whatever you're selling, and that the fact that there is open data around, or that you're going to produce this open data, is going to dramatically improve not just your business, but the society, the economy, the open data economy in general. And because we're a European program, we want you to at least think about internationalization and about addressing other markets in other countries in the EU, if not in the 6 months during the project with us, at least mid to long term. We had several companies in the program that have done this and have used the fact that they are part of a European consortium to learn more and build a network in some other European countries as well, besides the one they are based in. Excuse me. It is important not just to have a good business idea that addresses a potentially large market, but to do this at the right point in time. So we need to understand why we would need to fund this idea now and not in 6 months or 6 months before, and why this is exactly the right time to have the greatest impact. Looking perhaps beyond the incubation, it is critical for us to see that you have plans, that you have thought about where your company is going to be in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, and you also have a vision for how you will change the world, if I may say so, by implementing the idea that you applied with. Right, so at this stage, I would want to move to team and budget. For some reason, I have managed to
get out of the...
Yes.
While you're on that, I will add something on the previous section, because we also have a question. It says, how important is foreseeing the delivery of the final product service within the incubation period? And well, the answer to that, I think, is related to another question that we have had been asked before, which is about the technology readiness level that we expect. And from our point of view, we are open to early stage applications, and also to applications that already have a certain traction. the evaluators evaluate this, or we evaluate this depending on the market you're targeting and the competition that already exists. I would say that if you are in an early stage status, you need to at least aim to have an MVP, a minimum viable product at the end of your incubation period. From that, if you are on a further technology readiness level, it's open to discussion. Okay, so
right. Any further questions that we need to?
Yes, we have another question here. This is, can we apply to more than one EU funding program at the same time? And is the funding received from ODINE is affecting the de minimis limit? So
it doesn't.
Yeah, the de minimis does not affect it.
No.
I think the only program that we have it was Finodex, that is already ended. The one that we have a no double funding agreement. However, yeah, I think what it's important here, it's that to avoid double funding, is that the idea, if your company has been funded by another EU fund, another EU program, sorry, it must not be for the same idea or for the same product that you're trying to incubate with us. That's the important thing.
Yeah, so basically, to explain it perhaps differently, there are various sources of European funding which you probably know about. This Finodex program was very similar to ODINE, but it has now completed. You may want to apply for the SME instrument of Horizon 2020 or for other sources of funding. Now, obviously, if you have a business idea, you may want to apply for more than 100,000 euros from the European Commission to support the implementation of this idea. Double funding just means that whatever features of your product, of your ideas, you are going to realize using the ODINE funds cannot be funded or should not be funded through other EU means. This does not mean, however, that if you have, say, a mobile app, you will not be able to fund it through a mix of different EU funding programs. But the activities that you will fund will have to be complementary. Say, through ODINE, you might want to enter a new market, yeah, so move from, say, Austria to Germany and Switzerland, and ODINE will help you do that. And then you could apply for a different line of funding to, say, build a version of your mobile app for Android, if you just had one for the iOS, yeah. So different activities related to the same product and funded through different programs. Anything else, Luis?
There's a question that, well, that's maybe more for the team and budget part. Is this open to private citizens or just if I'm registered as a small business?
No, so go on and reply to that already. I think it's a good time to talk about
Okay, well, if the definition of SME by the European Union is rather broad, and it includes citizens or people that it's working by themselves, which the regulation varies for each depending on the country. But if you are a private worker, I mean, or a private consultant, for example, you can apply. However, from a practical point of view, it's a little complex because normally in that status, with that legal status, you cannot hire other people. So that, let's say, limits the scope of what you can do while applying to ODINE. So short answer is you can apply, but the scope of what you can do with us is rather limited.
So if you think about it, you're applying for up to 100,000 euros, yeah, for 6 months. Now this is typically used to cover salaries for yourself as the founder or co-founder and for your employees, yeah. You cannot subcontract key activities in the project. This is a rule in Horizon 2020. So the main activities that you apply for funding will have to be carried out in your company. So if you're a one-man, one-woman show, then that would be by yourself. So you can calculate then at your salary rates in each country and realize, the scope of activities that you could apply for. Right, Luis, anything else that we would need to know at this
No,
stage?
not at this stage.
All right. So I would move now to the team and budget, which is the third section in the proposal. So this is really about the types of companies that we are funding, and what we would want to know about your team and how you're going to use the funding to realize your business. There are various types of profiles of companies applying into ODINE. It can be anything from an established SME, so a company that has been around for several years, already working with open data, or seeing ODINE as an opportunity to look into open data. So in this case, it is really important for us to understand that you didn't just add open data more or less artificially to things that you are doing anyway, just to be eligible for funding. But that you see open data as a key enabler to expand your current market share or to create a new product or business line that you didn't have before. So you need to convince us that this is not just business as usual and you do a little bit of open data now and you're part of ODINE, but that this is something that is important and core to your new product or business line. And this is actually easier to realize than you think. So for those of you who are considering applying and are perhaps less familiar with open data, our recommendation would be to perhaps get in touch with us. We offer a wide range of training activities as well and awareness raising events for open data to get an understanding of how valuable open data can be, and to see how you could perhaps reap some of these benefits for your business. As desirable outputs, we would see something like a minimal viable product. If it's a new product line, we would need to understand what your price strategy is going to be and how. We also need to understand how that strategy has come about. Where did you get the data from? How did you come up with the numbers that you're putting in the proposal? We need to see that you have a vision and a strategy for growth, and that you, with your new open data product or business line, are willing and prepared to grow and have an impact on the market. Equally, we have lots of companies that have literally just started. They have a very interesting idea around open data, and they see ODINE as an opportunity to test its feasibility. We need to see in those cases that your business is sound. So we need to be confident that, well, there is an actual market opportunity there. So the impact section is quite important. But we also need to be confident enough that when you have spent the ODINE funds after 6 months, that you're still going to be around, that you have an ambition to take the business further, that you're looking for further funding opportunities and for clients actively, and we can help you to do that during the project as well, but we need to see a strategy coming from you as well. If you're a researcher, then this is probably not so relevant for you, because ODINE is a business incubator. It is not for fundamental or applied research, even if it's in collaboration with industry. However, if your research is already published and you are planning or you have an academic spin-off, then this might be a great opportunity actually. And in case you're the scientist with the idea, what we would encourage you to do is to put together a team. So to have expertise in your team in business development, in marketing, in sales, and then you can apply with your idea to ODINE. What I'm trying to say with this applies actually to various emerging businesses, to startups. So when you present your team, what we are looking for is to see that you have a mix of skills, or that you at least are aware that this mix of skills is needed, and use ODINE to build a team with all-around experience, not just in technical matters, but also in marketing and sales and legal and so on and so forth. And you could, in case you don't have this expertise, you could subcontract some of it, as long as it is not the main activity you apply for funding in ODINE. But you can use other companies as subcontractors to help you with that. So this is typically the case we see for marketing, for PR, for promotions, for legal support. Companies do use parts of their ODINE funds to do that. So the important thing is to have a balanced team, either before you apply or with the help of ODINE. So if you are a technical person, you definitely need to have, or to aim to have, business development people on board. If you are a scientist, you need marketing, business development. If you're a non-technical person who has realized that open data has potential in certain areas, and we have several companies in this that fall in this category in the program, you definitely need to hire someone with data science expertise. You need to hire some software engineers. You also need to have someone that understands open data and the open data economy, because it can lead to various business opportunities by reaching out to other startups and small businesses in this space. So we want to see this mix of skills, or to see that you are aware of what you're missing, and you're going to use ODINE to improve the balance of skills in your team. There is a question in the proposal called, why should we back your team? Often less successful proposals tend to give us a very generic answer for that. This not only wastes lots of space, so remember you just have 4 pages to do that, but also lets the evaluators believe that you haven't perhaps found the right arguments to tell us why you are so unique. So please think about why the people working in your company, the team that will be working on ODINE, is so special, so skilled, so talented, so enthusiastic, that they deserve these funds. There is a question on capacity. So this is for us to see that your company, your team has the means, the resources to implement a 6-month project that is worth around 100,000 euros. We want you to be ambitious, but we also want to see that you are realistic. And the reviewers will assess if you're able to deliver the idea within those boundaries. So it has to be something that can be delivered with a team of, I don't know, typically around 3 to 4 people perhaps, within 6 months with the funds that you have. In order to get a better understanding of your financial planning, we also asked you to give us an idea about revenues and headcount in your companies for the next 3 years. So for early stage businesses, this is something that we want you to think about when you apply, because it is also helpful in general for growing your business. And like with everything, with every type of number, we are asked market size, revenues, prices, headcount. It is not just enough for you to give us a number. It is also important for you to give a short justification. This is for us to understand how you have determined that number, especially as you have to take into account that you are writing that proposal for 2 reviewers who are knowledgeable but perhaps not experts in that particular vertical market that you are addressing. Finally, there is some information we need from you about the budget. So you know you can apply for up to 100,000 euros to support your business. There is a template we give which you need to use, and this template is a simplified version of what we are allowed to fund according to European rules. We also need to know what you're going to use the grant for, whether it is going to be salaries, and salaries for how many people in which roles, whether you want to use some of the funds to travel to clients and how many trips and where. As with everything else in the proposal, please be as specific as possible. So don't just write, I don't know, consumables 5,000 euros, because we also need to know what these consumables are going to be. You don't need to be very detailed there, but just give us some idea about how that would convince us that you didn't just write down 5,000 euros without actually doing a more thorough calculation. And this is an example of how such a budget could look like. There is a rule there which is also explained in the guide for applicants about the costs of equipment, so servers, laptops, any type of infrastructure, technical infrastructure that you might need. So there are rules in Horizon 2020 for public funding that mean that for a 6 months project we can only fund a certain share of those costs. Everything else is funded 100%. We see that most companies that apply into ODINE will use or plan to use the funding to employ people. For salaries, we need to, we will look at how consistent these salaries are with the average wages in your country, in your area. So try to take those figures into account as well. We want to see a commitment from the key roles in the business, from CEOs, from CTOs. So we understand obviously that startups need a source of funding and that the founders as well need to earn a living. But we also want to see that the founders are invested and committed to the business. So something we or evaluators appreciate perhaps less is when they see that 90% of the funds of the ODINE fund are going to be used to pay a salary to the founder, 100%, and with a nice salary as well compared to average wages in that country. So I would recommend in those cases to show some commitment to the business, but also for the employees to have, if possible, plans to hire people full-time. And this shows that you have a big vision and a big ambition and don't just have part-time employees that are perhaps committed elsewhere as well. So we want, A, to see commitment from the founders. So this means perhaps not funding yourself and your founding team from the project exclusively, and perhaps not using the funds exclusively for that, and also to see an ambition and a vision to grow by committing to hire people full-time. All right. A few words very, very briefly, because we're reaching the end of the webinar, about the evaluation and negotiation. But perhaps we will take some questions now,
yes,
please.
there was a question about if the team is not complete at the time of the application, is it possible to hire a person within the 6 months? Yes, of course. In that case, you will declare in the template, you declare the team that it's already with you, that it's already working full-time and part-time with you, and then in the budget, in the salaries part, in the hiring part, personal part, you will say, I will hire this person to complement my team.
Or perhaps if not this person, I will hire someone with this
Exactly.
expertise in this role with this average salary.
If you don't have the name yet, you will do that.
Anything else?
No more questions on that.
Okay, so briefly now about evaluation and negotiation. So say you submit end of June, then immediately you would get a few days after we close the submission, you're going to get a confirmation saying, thank you for submitting to ODINE, these are the next steps. And the next step is really the invitation to the interview. We let everyone know whether they've been invited to the interview or not within the first 2 weeks, I think, of the evaluation month. So this would be anywhere around mid-July, but the exact date is going to be mentioned in the notification email you receive. You need to keep those days free. We cannot tell you what time slot you are going to be assigned, because obviously at the beginning of July we do not know how many companies and which companies are going to be shortlisted, and we also cannot ask you for your preferences, what time of the day, which day, and so on and so forth. So you have to keep into account that during those interview days, we have to manage around 100 people, all companies that are shortlisted, the evaluators, the ODINE team, and that's the only practical way to do it. So unfortunately, you'll have to make sure that someone who is able to present your idea to ODINE is available for those days. It is a remote, so an online interview. We typically use Google Hangouts. We ask you to do a 5-minute presentation about your business, and then we ask you to expand on critical points of your application, which we feel deserve further consideration. So the important thing here is just make sure before you apply, plan properly, make sure that the relevant people in your business are available for those interview dates. Then if you are successful, at the end of July, for the round that is currently open, we will let you know that you have been invited for negotiation. On the website, on the How to Apply website, there are templates for this, for the negotiation, and they are very important because at this stage we have to do the paperwork, and it is not the most pleasant process for anyone, but we have to do our due diligence as managers of this public fund, and we have to make sure that you are an SME according to the European Commission definition. We also have to perform what we call a financial health check of your business. So we are going to ask you, so say if you apply for end of June, if you are invited for negotiations at the end of July, then the 1st of August, more or less, you're going to receive a very long email with a long list of documents that we need in order to sign the contract with you. And we need all those documents because we have to comply ourselves with Horizon 2020 and European guidelines. So just make sure now that you know what those documents are. In particular, if you're not in the UK or an English-speaking country, we will need key official documents to be translated into English, and we will have to do this and have these documents at very specific and strict deadlines. So my recommendation to everyone would be to have a look at all the deadlines in advance before you start preparing your application, because they are available, so you can plan in advance. We have put all the full schedule online for you to have a look at, to make sure that you can meet these deadlines, because we will not be able to we don't have room for to wait or to make exceptions, unfortunately. So on this website, on the How to Apply website, in the negotiation part, you will see a work plan template. You will see the milestone reports you will have to produce during the project, and you will also see a template of the contract that you will sign. Yeah, and in that contract contains annexes with all the documents we will ask you to submit. All right, so the message, as I said, is to plan ahead. Don't submit your application and then see what happens, because after you submit, the evaluation and negotiation phases are at a very high pace. So we need to make sure that you're around for the interviews and that you can give us all the information we need to complete the negotiations. All right, so this is me now. If you're interested in more information, everything's on our website. We have an email list, call@opendataincubator.eu, where we try to reply as quickly, as promptly as possible. Follow us on Twitter as well for last-minute updates. And for those of you who want to meet us, we are going to be at the European Data Forum in the Netherlands, in Eindhoven, together with some of the companies that are part of our program at the end of June. Right now, let's see if there are any further questions.
We have two questions. The first is, in the description of the team, is it necessary to specify the name of the members? Isn't the profile enough? The answer there is that you specify the names for the ones that are already working with you, and for the people you plan to hire, just the profiles. And the second question is, how long does it take to get the PIC number that confirms we are an SME? We just need the PIC of that confirms that you are registered into the participant portal. That it's you get it automatically after registration. There is also a validation status where the EU validates your status as SME. That we don't require. If you have it, it's better because it accelerates the process of negotiation if you are selected, but it's not required to apply.
Yeah, so just to add to that, so you apply for a PIC online. In most cases, you receive it within 24 hours. Sometimes it takes longer. So I have heard of companies that had to wait and follow up with emails and chase that department in the European Commission for some reason. It shouldn't be the case. But I wouldn't wait with the application too long. until the ODINE deadline, because we can't do anything. So if you come to us and tell us, I haven't received my PIC number, all we can do is to write to the same office in Brussels, I would assume, that is responsible for that, and we have no direct line to them. It should be fast though. The second question about the validation. So when you apply for a PIC number, you do what they call a self-validation. So you answer a number of questions, and based on those answers, the EC determines whether you're probably an SME or not. This is different from them actually confirming that you are an SME, but they don't do that unless you are a recipient of EC funding. So everyone can apply for a PIC. They're a self-declared SME, but the EC does not put the effort in validating you unless you are due to receive money from them. And this is exactly what we are doing in ODINE as well. So those companies who have received EC funding before and have been validated by Brussels, we don't do that for you. We don't have to do that because you have been validated officially. Most of our companies, however, are new to EU funding. This is why we have to ask you for all these documents. All these documents that we're asking you for during negotiations are exactly those documents that Brussels would ask you as well to confirm that you're an SME. Okay, anything else, Luis?
No, there are no more questions, and I
All
think
right.
we are on time.
Okay, so I hope this was useful to explain some of the details and some of the things evaluators look at when applying to ODINE. In case you're interested in considering an application, the next deadline is at the end of June. If you have any further questions, please drop us an email, or if you're around end of June at the EDF, come by our exhibition booth if we're going to be there. Thank you very much for everyone. Thanks, Luis, as well for your help, and have a good weekend.
Thank you.